Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Inept General bringing you another Total War Warhammer Legendary Lord lore video, and today we are going to be looking at the Sisters of Twilight. The Sisters have been recently announced as part of the Twisted and the Twilight DLC announced for Total War Warhammer 2 involving the Wood Elves, so I thought we'd take a little bit of a look at their lore. Now, a lot of this has actually been taken from my Missing Wood Elf Legendary Lords lore video, which I did a number of years ago now, I think. If you want to see that video, you can check in the top right-hand corner now. But I've added in a little bit to this, but if you've seen that and fancy giving it a skip, feel free to. But otherwise, do sit back and enjoy. The Sisters of Twilight first appeared in the Warhammer world between the years 1700 and 2007 of the Imperial calendar, so anywhere between 800 to 500 years before the start of the current Total War Warhammer timeline. When they arrived on the scene, they arrived in the King's Glade of Athel Loren and declared themselves the emissaries of Ariel, the Queen of the Wood Elves. Now at this point, she hadn't been seen for quite some time, for a number of reasons I won't get into in this video, but if you're interested in her lore, do check out my Ariel video popping up in the top right hand corner now, or you'll find a link in the description below. So when these twin sisters presented themselves, the council who was present in the King's Glade didn't believe these two women at first, for they were strangers to everyone assembled. Now, Orion, the king of the Wood Elves, was away campaigning at this time, but when he arrived back, he felt the energy, the essence of the Queen of the Wood Elves within these two emissaries, and so accepted them into the General Council. And from that point on, the two twin sisters were considered the representatives of the Wood Elf Queen, speaking on her behalf. Now, although the two sisters are twins, they very much differ in terms of their personalities. Raven-haired Naestra is said to be noble and chaste. She has an aptitude for healing, and her touch is said to be able to heal even the rawest of wounds. And when she has to attack stuff, she feels very bad about it. She has a very heavy heart, even when killing the foulest of creatures the Warhammer world has to throw at her. So very empathetic is our Naestra. On the other hand, we have Arahan, whose hair is as white as newly fallen snow. She is a wild soul, rejoicing in the viscera of battle when she has to dive into it. She is full of a love of life, and her revelry has gotten her into much trouble, and she very much walks the line of what is acceptable and not in Wood Elf society. But she is filled with a joie de vivre unparalleled amongst the Wood Elves, some could argue. The sisters themselves are incredibly close, known to finish each other's sentences, although it has been argued that when one finishes the other's sentences, they tend to twist their meaning for their own benefit, rather than allowing their sister to finish the sentence. They're just really taking control of the whole conversation. When they are in council with the rest of the Wood Elf ruling class, they stand on either side of the throne of the Wood Elf Queen, never sitting in her chair when she was absent. It's said that during the summer months, it's in fact Naestra who speaks the most, and during the winter months, it is Arahan who speaks the most. So they are also tied to the seasons, much like Ariel and Orion themselves. As for the origins of these two sisters, it is kind of a mystery within the Wood Elf society itself. They kind of appear on the scene and people are like, who are these guys? And there are a couple of theories. Some theorize that these are the queen herself split into two personalities, her light side and her dark side, and they've been manifest as these two sisters. Others have said that they are similarly a split girl who had wandered from into the wild wood and then been sort of brought back by Ariel, but in bringing her back, she had to bring her back in these two halves. So again, the idea of a split singular person. And the others, which are probably the most commonplace in Wood Elf society in terms of the rumors of who they are, is that they're simply Ariel's daughters. And that speaks to why they're so powerful and great. Now, these girls are quality fighters. They're as happily walking through the Dreamwood, which is a particularly dangerous part of Athel Loren, as they are walking through a summer's meadow. They sort of walk nonchalantly. They're so confident in their ability to fight off anything that may threaten them. And all of their gear and weaponry is prepared by Daith, who is the master of Targavon, which I believe is one of the factions when you begin a Wood Elf campaign, who's also sharing Athel Loren with you. And he's the master smith of the Wood Elves. He can carve anything. He's the best smith they have. He's legendary, and he makes all their gear, and he dotes on them, very much like a very proud uncle, he's described as. So he loves these girls, he likes giving them their weapons, their war gear, and so they have the best war gear around, and they know how to use it. Another trait of these sisters is that to kill them, you have to kill them both in quick succession. There have been stories going around that if you don't kill both, the other will revive and come back to life. There are stories around, particularly around Arahan, who seems to benefit from this gift most, of Arahan being eaten by a gorgon and then completely coming back to life within his stomach and hacking her way out. There are stories of her eviscerating a vampire immediately, sort of seconds after the vampire had just beheaded her. In these moments when Arahan is about sort of just dead and about to be revived, they say that Naestra takes on the wild, impassioned nature of her. And the theory is that Arahan's spirit goes into Naestra and then goes back out and is into a new body. And thus she is continually able, or into the old body and revives the old body. Thus she's continually able to resuscitate herself. So if you have to kill them, you have to kill them both at the same time, which could be an interesting thing technically on the tabletop. But in the Warhammer game, we've seen that they're able to do units of 2 together with Skarsnik and his squig. So it shouldn't be too much of a trouble, but Skarsnik and the squig also share a health pool. So I think if you did kill them, they die together automatically on Total War Warhammer anyway. I'm not sure how you could really use that dynamic in the fashion of that game, unless you made them 2 separate models, and then one just comes back to life if you kill one, if the other one's sort of flying above the battlefield or something like that. But I don't see them doing that. I think if these 2 girls made it into Total War Warhammer, they'd be a single unit, but with two models in that unit. In terms of their mounts, which we can see here, we have the Eagle, Gwyndolor, who is, I think, related to or in the lineage of the King of the Eagles himself, so one of the better eagles around. He has the gift of being able to hover above a battlefield and to position the sisters in exactly the right place they need to be to rain down their arrows upon the enemy. And their other mount is, now I'm going to get this pronunciation wrong, but Sifinhar? I think that's right. If you guys have any better ideas how to pronounce that, do let me know. And he is their dragon, and he likes to just dive into the middle of a battle and just get involved, use his breath as a weapon, let the girls use their swords in close combat. That's him. So now this presents an interesting opportunity, I think, for Creative Assembly, because what they seem to like to do with the Wood Elves is, with the Glade Lord Generals, is they like to make you choose between having a melee-focused path of upgrade and a missile-focused path of upgrade. And I think they could do that very interestingly with these 2 sisters. So if you pick the melee path, you eventually unlock the dragon as a mount. And if you pick the missile path, you could eventually unlock the eagle as a mount. And I think that could give you some really interesting options just in terms of what you have and what you want to do with the sisters and how you want to use them. So I think that could be a huge possibility. And obviously the mounts are meant to reflect the sisters' personality themselves. So the dragon is obviously a reflection of Arahan, and the eagle is obviously a reflection of Naestra. Now, these 2 actually sort of chat, apparently, and like talk and converse amongst each other. And they're known not to get on particularly well, but they do both love the sisters, and they share that. So whereas one of them, they wouldn't take a bullet for each other, they'd each take a bullet for the sisters, and that's the kind of thing that bonds them together and stops them maybe eating each other. In terms of the girls' weapons, they have 2 bows. They have the Talon of Dawn and the Talon of Dusk. Now, the Talon of Dawn is Naestra's weapon. It fires bolts of searing light. So they do fire damage, armor piercing, and they have a kind of leeching effect. So in the tabletop, wounds she inflicts on the enemies can then be restored to her mount at the time. Not necessarily her, but her mount. But I think if you were going to do them as a unit, that would have 1 life bar anyway. So it'd be like the more damage she does, the more life she regains, which I don't think they've done in Total War Warhammer yet. And I think that would be a very interesting way of doing it. So the more damage she does, the more life she regains. And I think that would be a really cool way of regenning. And Arahana has the Talon of Dusk. And this is an arrow that splits into multiple projectiles. And the idea is they're multiple poisonous thorns. So she'd do poison damage and shoot multiple projectiles down at once. Now, I think it would be quite cool. I mean, it would be amazing to see them both firing at once from a mount, sort of flying around the battlefield. But I wonder if they'd let you maybe I can see Total War making you pick what ammunition they're firing. So like at one point you can pick to do the regenning ammo with the fire damage, or at one point you can pick to do the multiple poison damage spread shot kind of thing, and you sort of maybe select between the two modes. That'd be quite an interesting aspect to add to the game. But suffice to say that among Elven society, they're very much recognized as the emissaries of the Queen, and their word's taken as her word, even though no one's 100% sure what the relationship is between the two. And that about sums it up for the Sisters of Twilight. I'm excited to see the sisters making an appearance in Total War Warhammer 2, as I hope you guys are too. But as always, guys, a huge thank you for watching, and I hope to catch you all on the next one. Alright, guys? Bye.